Peace. What's good? How y'all doing? This is ZaZaAli. Today is Thursday, July 21st, 2022. I pray that this message reaches you all in the best of health, spirit, and mind. I am doing well. Thank you. Today, my subject is the future belongs to the visionaries. And the goal with this conversation is going to be to inspire us all to aspire to our full potential in terms of creation and in terms of creativity. A few announcements before I get into my subject. You can watch this full 1 hour video by signing up for my membership channel. Hopefully my sound in the background isn't too loud or it's not competing with my voice. But you can watch this full 1 hour video by signing up for my membership channel, or you can access it on demand. You can check the description for the links to do both of those things. Also, I've written 4 metaphysics workbooks and 2 books, The Scientific Intervention in Our Affairs and Plagues of Dysfunction. I've also written an ebook, Practical Steps to Health and Well-Being. The link in the description to access all of that information is there. Also, I'm working on my newest book, Ancient People, a History and Social Studies textbook, and I will be offering that available for pre-orders very soon. I will be speaking in LA, Saturday, August the 20th, 2022, which also happens to be numerically the number 88. My subject my subject is Illuminati 2.0, a divine new world order. We are taking back all spiritual and righteous concepts, and both of those, Illuminati or the Illuminati, as well as the New World Order. Those are both concepts that are being misused and misinterpreted, or not misinterpreted, but definitely misused in this hour. And so we are taking a righteous, powerful position to take back all divine, spiritual, and righteous concepts back. I'll be speaking at in Brooklyn at Nicholas Bookstore, Saturday, September 24th, 2022. Flyers and ticket information for that will be coming soon. Also, tickets are available for the LA event Saturday, August the 20th. I don't know if I said that, but they are available for purchase on my website. Flyers and ticket information for the Brooklyn speaking engagement will be coming soon. And the Atlanta date is potentially October the 2nd, still pending. All tickets to purchase or to access or to come to any of my events are only available at ZaZaAli.com. So no Eventbrite, no, you know what I mean? No Tower Records. I'm dating myself, who used to have to go to Tower Records to get tickets for Ticketmaster. But also on my site, there are workshops and courses and information about working with me in a one-on-one capacity. As always, thank you to those who purchase my books, support my content, come to my events, send love offerings or financial contributions, which I don't consider donations. It's not a donation if you get something in return. But I love and appreciate you guys so much. You make what I'm doing possible, or no, you don't make it possible, but you do contribute to the manifestation of my vision and goals for myself and for my future. And so that really means a lot. And especially in terms of what we're talking about today, you know, a lot of what I'm doing, even this ancient people textbook right now, this is something that I've been wanting to do for like the past 10 years. My vision of it was different. I was going to write like a textbook for a school level, you know, academic level textbook, and encompass, you know, a very large array of history. And I'm still doing that now, but instead of me doing it all in one whop, I'm breaking it down into volumes. So I'm very excited about that. So everything that you guys contribute to my work supports my visions and goals for my future. All right, so this particular subject today, the future belongs to the visionaries. I was taking notes taking notes and also referencing some books and different things that I'm going to share with you guys today. And this concept, the thought occurred to me because creation and creativity kept coming up in these different, you know, in my research or in my the different things that I was kind of writing down or leaning into in the books of other people, which, by the way, I think the fact that I always, when I do these videos, reference other great minds, such as Greg Braden, such as, who am I going to reference today? Neville Goddard, Deepak Chopra, and Catherine Ponder, among other people, really underscores the intention. And I'm going to talk about attention versus intention, but the intention of my videos, right? So I hopefully it's very clear for you guys, especially when coming from the spiritual vantage point, that my platform is not about ego. And it's not about, the me factor or how intelligent or wise I am or why you should follow me or why I have the answers. Because I am trying to lead you to truth, not to me, right? But in going through my notes and kind of preparing for this today, the concept of creation and creativity kept coming up, right? So the definition of creation is the action, or one of the definitions, I should say, the action or process of bringing something into existence, or the bringing into of existence of the universe, especially regarded as an act of God. And then you have creativity, the use of the imagination or original ideas, especially in the production of an artistic work. So you have creation, and then you have creativity, and then you have creating. And all three of these words and the root aspect of these words are all about creating something from nothing, which is actually what the whole theory of evolution is. It's also we talk about the mind being all, or we live in a mental universe, meaning something had to be sparked within the mind, within the thought process, in order for it to come to be. And that makes sense when we think about that on a human level, because we've all experienced that, wanted something so bad, or wanted someone so bad, or wanted an experience so bad that we willed it into existence, right? Through our imaginations and through our consciousness. So creation versus creativity versus creating. It's interesting to me that the whole concept of creation started from, is based out of creating something from nothing. And then the whole concept of creativity is the use of the imagination or original ideas, hence, and then especially in the production of an artistic work. And I really, when I thought about that, it made me think about how artists are sort of prized in one way, or revered in one way, in terms of being able to just completely dedicate themselves artistically, right? So being able to close yourself in your studio and just paint until your heart, until you fulfill your heart's desire, right? But that type of intentional or zoned out focus isn't really applied in the average person's life. And then we also think about artists in terms of the starving artist. There's this whole moniker that comes with that, right? Yeah, you can live your passions, you can follow your dreams, you can dive, 1,000 feet off the edge of life, the cliff of life, right? In order to fulfill your passions, but you won't really make any money from it. Even poets, right? Even people who are writers, authors, especially in this day and time, like writing is not really a highly appreciated and valued commodity or a level of artistry. And I'm saying that as a writer, right? Understanding, when you can read a person's words and being able to, because they're basically reading your mind, and be able to have a sort of energetic resonance of truth, where something you say enlightens or wakes something up in another person's mind, or just gives them clarity. That's a whole energetic transmutation. Sometimes it happens through reading a person's words. Sometimes it happens through hearing words in a song. Sometimes it happens from hearing a public speech, sitting in an audience and hearing another speaker, and it be so profound and so powerful that it wakes something up in you. So I want to talk about, because we talk about dimensions of consciousness, and I've even done 2 videos, dimensions of consciousness. Part 1 is on YouTube. A clip of it is on part 1 on YouTube, and then part 2 is just up in the private membership channel. But I realized today in my notes that I didn't really go into what dimensions is in those videos. And because I'm going to continue talking about dimensions of consciousness moving forward, but I'm also going to talk about dimensions, in particular, the 5th dimension, that whole concept that everybody is, kind of talking about now, this new age, this new spiritual based reality, this new shift in consciousness and awareness, right? Where human beings are going to be operating at this sort of superhero type level, which I 100% can resonate with and I'm looking forward to. And I say that not just because, it's sort of an in vogue thing to say right now, right? Everybody's talking about it in the metaphysics or in the spiritual culture. My take on it is a little bit different, because a lot of people in the spiritual culture are not really talking about the what's happening in the background of our reality right now, right? In terms of this broader agenda, in terms of the medical and the scientific and the digital and the financial and the economic, like all these very serious and potentially dangerous things that are happening in the background. Well, a lot of people in the spiritual community aren't talking about that. And I think it's doing a major hindrance to their audience and to the broader consciousness. Not because I want people to be afraid. This is not about being afraid. This is about being knowledgeable and being aware and being conscientious about what's happening around you. That's why we're here in 3rd dimensional reality. We could have escaped having to deal with, the difficult pain and stress and suffering of the world before we came here by not coming here. But we came here at this specific time for specific reasons, right? So, but my point is, the super being is going to be shaped and formed, super being or the reality of 5th dimensional reality, those 2 things really being cohesive, if you understand what that means. The super being is being shaped through the pressure and the difficulties of these times, because the super beings are going to understand that the internal focus, the internal vision, and the internal compass is going to be the key to setting up the kingdom of God, or this concept of 5th dimensional reality. So the dimensions are defined as, and this is dimensions can be applied to science, dimensions can be applied to mathematics. Those are really where the concepts were sort of defined. But it can also be in terms of consciousness, which we've been talking about, and in terms of spirituality, right? So the dimensions are different facets of what we perceive to be reality. Dimensions are also considered or ranked, or defined based on measurement. Most common to all 3 dimensions is length, width, and depth of all objects in our universe. The first dimension is length. And you can imagine a straight line to determine length, right? A ruler determines, point A to point B. So that is a very specific straight line. Everybody can identify that in their mind's eye, right? The second dimension is height, or those 2 together make a 2-dimensional shape. So length plus height equals 2 dimensions. Height on its own is 1 dimension. I'm sorry, no, height on its own is not 2 dimensions. Height plus length is 2 dimensions. The second dimension is height, and those 2 together make a 2-dimensional shape. The third dimension is depth. Cube, for instance, a cube, would represent 3rd dimensional. For length, width, plus depth equals volume. And so you can think of a cube, but you can also think of each of us as a physical individual human being, right? There's obviously way more to it than that, but we in this physical realm represent third dimensional reality, or length, width, and depth equaling volume. The fourth dimension has been identified by scientists and even by physics as time. And this governs the property of all known matter at any given point. And the idea of time representing the fourth dimension is going to be varied depending on if you're talking to or listening to a physicist or a scientist or a mathematician or a spiritual person, right? So that adds even more dimensions of layers, and all of them can be right. You know what I'm saying? That's why this web of energy and this infinite consciousness, right, is important to start understanding from a spiritual level and how it actually applies to our personal lives, because there's the macro and then there's the micro. The fifth dimension, wait, let me go back to my notes. Okay, the fifth dimension is the space and plane where spiritual phenomena take place. And, you know, I've been talking about the participatory universe, right? And all things being connected. So the elevation is about reconnecting to the source, which is the all. The fifth dimensional reality can't be observed in a physical or a tangible or direct manner. The fifth dimension is where it is said that the forces of gravity and electromagnetism meet, which is out of bounds of human sight, but it still exists. Locked in and ruled by third dimensional standards, the fifth dimension will be spiritual standards, or spiritually based, and have spiritual standards, which are limitless. The first three dimensions can be observed simply by looking at an object or measuring it to be precise in the amount of height, width, and depth it sports. The fourth dimension can easily be observed if an object moves in front of our eyes. Though time itself cannot be viewed or be perceived, the distance that an object covers in a certain amount of time gives us an idea about this dimension as well. So in talking about the fifth dimension, right, you know, the concept of be as it is, be and it is. If you think about that simple subject that we all know, that we all have been, you know, sort of seeing, maybe some of us have been realizing and experiencing that, right? But it's a concept that's as old as time, because that's exactly what time reflects. Be and it is the movement of the time it takes to move from point A to point B. That's what time is, just a measurement, right? But it's also, when we talk about, and this is going into like the evolution of consciousness, right? That original Big Bang theory. The thought had to precede the actual manifestation, whatever that first manifestation looked like. If it was a burst, if it was a, you know, a slow rolling process, there had to be a thought that preceded the physical manifestation, right? And so moving into fifth dimensional reality, we're getting ready to develop, through the pressure and the struggle and the difficulty of these times, as well as spiritual downloads through different solar, the solar communication that the sun is having right now in and through our planet, as well as the, you know, the different prophecies that were to be fulfilled at this time, as well as the astrological and astronomical prophecies or alignment, I should say, that are taking place on the micro and the macro level, right? As well as the unveiling of technology and the evolving of technology. Because as human beings continue to expand technology, and now we have a very large segment of the human population that is now being manipulated and targeted, deceived, and harmed by way of technology. And it's not just the Jim Jones juice. It's also the social media. It's also the, excuse me, the towers and the Wi-Fi routers, right? The electromagnetic radiation from the phones, right? So there's a lot of, even with dimensions of consciousness, there's a lot of dimensions of, in terms of technology, right? It being a mental space. Now they're bridging the gap between the mental space and the physical space through metaverse and goggles, right? So I don't want to get too far off my point here and make sure that I stay on topic. So in The Complete Reader by Neville Goddard, and I'm going to quote a couple of paragraphs from here because it's spot on in terms of what this point that I'm trying to make. I also have been and going to continue to be uploading different clips in the membership channel of Neville Goddard, as well as other great minds, content that I think really kind of underscores the points that I make in these videos. And so I have a specific clip that I'm going to upload of Neville Goddard where he's really kind of honing in on techniques that you can use in order to really hone in on and fine tune your imagination through meditation, etc. So quote, "And now I have told you before it is come to pass, that when it comes to pass, ye might believe." He's quoting, or he's referencing John chapter 14, verse 29. "Many persons, myself included, have observed events before they occurred. That is, before they occurred in this world of third dimensions. Since man can observe an event before it occurs in the three dimensions of space, life on earth must proceed according to plan. And this plan must exist somewhere in another dimension and be slowly moving through our space. If the occurring events were not in the world when they were observed, then to be perfectly logical, they must have been out of this world. And whatever is there to be seen before it occurs here must be predetermined from the point of view of man awake in the third dimensional world. Thus the question arises, are we able to alter our future? The most remarkable feature of man's future is his flexibility. It is determined by his attitudes rather than by his acts. The cornerstone from which all things are based is man's concept of self. He acts as he does and has the experience that he does because his concept of himself is what it is and for no other reason. A change of concept of self automatically alters his future." And notice he says here, it is determined, the most remarkable feature of man's future is his flexibility. It is determined by his attitudes rather than his acts. And just to kind of underscore that, we have this kind of unwritten, sort of rule in American culture in particular, that, hard work pays off, and the harder you work, that's the key to success. But we know that's not true because the people that work the hardest have the least. So the ones that have the most success are the ones that have the most predetermined will. The ones that are locked in on the vision, that are locked in on the dream, right? And that hold it so strong and so deep and so dear in their minds that it actually has no choice but to present itself in third dimensional reality. And this is why, we say nice guys finish last, or the bad guys always, make it to the top. Why is it that, the good guys finish last? Well, it's because the good guys don't have, and only in terms of this, this saying, it's because, let me just say this, the bad guys, the universe is no respecter of persons. So if the bad guy, quote unquote, is 1000% honed in, locked in, focused in on his vision and his dream, the universe is going to supplement, complement, and move heaven and earth to make sure that the bad guy realizes his manifestation. Not because it's supporting evil or wickedness or whatever, this person's character is, but because it's matching the emphasis and will and determination of the mind's eye vision. And it's also, now the balance is, the law of compensation, going back to the Kabbalion, the law of compensation is always going to dictate this person has been 1000% intentional and focused in terms of business success. Just for an example, those people usually fall short in matters of love or in matters of spiritual awareness, right? Because they're so focused in one area, they haven't been intentional in all of the different areas of their life. So I'm making a note to myself, something I don't want to forget. Yeah, being not 100% honed in and focused in one lane. And then you look up 40, 50 years old and you've got a, 10 room mansion and nobody to fill it with, right? So going back to the quote from The Complete Reader by Neville Goddard, man's assumptions, which he regards as insignificant, produce effects that are considerable. Therefore, man should revise his estimate of an assumption and recognize its creative power. All changes take place in consciousness. The future, although prepared in every detail in advance, has several outcomes. At every moment of our lives, we have before us a choice of which several futures we will choose. There are two actual outlooks on the world possessed by everyone: a natural focus and a spiritual focus. The ancient teachers called the one the carnal mind, the other the mind of Christ. We may, we may differentiate them as ordinary waking consciousness governed by our senses and a controlled imagination governed by desire. Now, let me stop and emphasize this because if when I first read this, I had to read it twice so that I could really hone in on what he was saying. A natural focus and a spiritual focus. The ancient teachers called the one the carnal mind. So the natural focus is the carnal mind, according to ancient teachers. And then the spiritual focus is the mind of Christ. We may differentiate them as ordinary waking consciousness governed by our senses. So our senses pertain to the carnal mind and natural focus, right? And a controlled imagination governed by desire is in reference to the mind of Christ and a spiritual focus. The habit of seeing only that which our senses permit renders us totally blind to what we would otherwise see. To cultivate the faculty of seeing the invisible, we should often deliberately disentangle our mind from the evidence of the senses and focus our attention on an invisible state, mentally feeling it and sensing it until it has the distinctiveness of reality. Earnest, concentrated thought focused in a particular direction shuts out other sensations and causes them to disappear. We have but to concentrate on the state desired in order to see it, excuse me. And, I've been saying continuously that Hollywood has been the so-called elites or the powers that used to be. They've been using Hollywood as their vision board and implanting all of these different things that are taking place now in the subconscious minds of the masses. And so now, as we see everything that's been played out in the movies happening in third dimensional reality, the people are not questioning it. They're not rebelling against it. They're accepting it to be true because in their subconscious mind, they accepted the movie when they watched it. They accepted the potential that it could be true when they watched the movie. Now, people who are operating in their, with the third eye, right, who can see beyond the veil, never accept the movie as true. I never accept the worst case scenario. Even my conscious, subconscious mind, none of that. It is all pure theater for me. But obviously, we can see that in this day and time, a lot of people have actually taken the movies to be true. I told you guys I had a back and forth with Tina Knowles, Beyonce's mother, one time because she put up a video or a clip talking about the statistics of people who aren't taking the shots and how that is affecting something just so ludicrous. And it was a lie. All of it was a lie, right? So I just went in the comments and just sounded off on her, right? Just dropped straight facts. It was nothing she could have said. And I wasn't, I didn't get raw or gully with her. I was very respectful, but I two-pieced her in the most sweetest, polite way, right? And of course, she didn't block me. She took the post down, which I respected, right? Because you get called out, you get seen, a lot of people will just block you, especially celebrities. They won't even acknowledge, they'll just block you and keep the lie up. So I respected the fact that she kept it up, even though eventually she, crawled back in her hole of ignorance and proved it on her page. But within the comments, someone said something to the effect of, I saw on the movies, all of the people who don't get the shot are the ones that always turn into the zombies. So I made sure when it was available in my area that I signed up to get mine. What? And the comment had like 40 likes. Like, is this real? This can't be real. I can't be in this place. This is what I'm, So but after, even when she posted it, I unfollowed her immediately. Like, no, I cannot have access to this level of ignorance. It is definitely harmful to my soul. So, coming back to my reference, Neville Goddard, that was a quote from the Complete Reader. And I always mention Abdullah, who was Neville Goddard's teacher, as well as the teacher of many of the prominent spiritual scientists that we know of today. Abdullah was taught by an Ethiopian Christian, Orthodox Christian, a very dark-skinned Orthodox Christian. I said that already. Ethiopian, I meant to say. And he was calling shots and exercising his power at a time where people were living in extreme chaos and difficulty and suffering and turmoil. And even when I think about slavery, and even when I think about some of the worst atrocities in the world, there were always people who were thriving and who were living well. Even that dichotomy that during slavery, during the times where there was extreme abuse and savagery happening in a very concentrated way in concentrated areas of the planet, there were still Native, African, indigenous people all over the world living their lives like none of it was happening. And I'm not saying that as a judgment, I'm saying that as a reference point to my topic. The future belongs to the visionaries. There's chaos and insanity and craziness happening all over our planet. How are we going to be internally focused and internally aware and in alignment with the frequency of God consciousness so that we can subvert and avert and navigate and escape it all? Because that's definitely my plan. So it's not even my plan. That is being it is definitive soul statement. I don't have a plan to survive this. You know what I'm saying? My soul is here to build the kingdom of God. So the concept of surviving this doesn't even, that's why I always say when I mention that word, I always follow up and say thrive. Because to me, surviving is the bar is too low. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not trying to survive. Can never be my ultimate goal because that bar is just too low. So the supreme beings are loading and are going to be shaped and fashioned based out of the pressure and the difficulty of the circumstances that are happening right now, and not conceding and not consenting and not following the crowd and not being a part of groupthink. There's a lot of power. That's going to be the powerful momentum that's going to project us forward, moving into the supremacy of a being, supreme beings. Because who are you without the fanfare? Who are you without the outer world stimulation? Who are you without the visual representation of your family? People that are now ostracized, your loved ones that are ostracizing you or turning their backs on you. And I only say that to whom it may concern. But I know a lot of the people that follow my content, well, even the membership channel, actually. This is a membership channel part of the video, so I know only you guys are going to hear this. But a lot of people who follow my content, which includes you guys, have gone through either the black sheep of the family, the outcast of the family, or have had to really, separate yourselves, even just if it's energetically, from a lot of the people that you love, because you're not willing to compromise yourself. To maintain sanity in the midst of this chaos and terror and dysfunction, right? We have to work on channeling and conquering whatever the fears are now, because fear is how they get in. They meaning the frequency, meaning the psychological abuse and manipulation that we're all facing, or not we're facing, but that the world is facing. We're not facing that because we're operating from the third eye agenda. So we see it. So I see you coming, you know what I mean? Like, no, it's funny to me. Funny in a very, creepy, God observing the devil type way. This is what my concept of spiritual hibernation is. You know, for a lot of people, it's hot girl summer right now. And what if this is the time that God is allowing us to go after self, the calm before the storm, so to speak? Only a storm if you're not working on self. Only a storm if you're not internally focused and striving to be in alignment with righteousness and love in this hour, when so many things that are contrary to that seem to be being rewarded and uplifted and gaining momentum by the day. Inspiration, enthusiasm, bliss, joy, and the upper echelons of consciousness plus vision in your mind's eye is what I equate to Christ consciousness. Visualizing, and this is what Neville Goddard is talking about when he's talking about altering the future. He's talking about visualizing it, holding in your mind's eye, and then matching the frequency of the vision with the love, with the appreciation, with the inspiration, with the enthusiasm that you would feel if it actually happened for you in third dimensional reality. Holding that in your mind's eye, matching the frequency, it goes out into the ethers, into the universe, and then eventually it has to make its way back to you. In the book, The Divine Matrix, Greg Brayton talks about this web, this divine matrix. And we've talked about this on my, my channel before, his work in particular in the divine matrix, but he's got this theory that he talks about the web that makes up the fabric of the universe, right? It says, this is on page 54, the experiments suggest that the energy connecting the universe exists as a tightly woven web that makes up the underlying fabric of our reality. Of the many ways we could define the matrix, perhaps the simplest is to think of it as three basic things: the container for the universe to exist within, the bridge between our inner and outer worlds, and the mirror that reflects our everyday thoughts, feelings, emotions, and beliefs. It appears to have intelligence. In other words, the field responds to the power of human emotions. Now think about that for a second. What if the field of the universe, not just this galaxy, but all galaxies, the stuff that everything is made of, is being actively influenced and changed or developed based on your personal human emotion? How many negative friendships that, or, sabotage based friendships did you attract to yourself? Or physically abusive men, or emotionally abusive women, or circumstances and jobs and in, with bosses and coworkers, or relationships, or business proposals, propositions, or potential jobs that never came through? How many of those things were affected based on your personal expectations and your personal perspective and awareness of yourself? So the field responding is not just talking about protons and electrons and atoms floating in space to create what we know of as space, or like dark matter and, the ethers, right? The dark room, all these different concepts of matter and space and universe and all that stuff. We think it's all outside of us. But that's the macro. The micro is the people you bump into on a daily basis, the person you sit next to on the bus, somebody accidentally spilling red wine on your dress at the club because you were pissed off and disrespected somebody before you came to the club, and it just totally changed the trajectory of your energy. So you put something out into the ethers and affected somebody else in a way that came right back to you in a very short amount of time because of the amount of energy that you projected or expressed in that experience. So, major high energy frequency based experiences attract the same thing. And then light, low, subtle energy based experiences attract the same thing. And the subtle things are, you may have a negative connotation about a coworker and you're just thinking it in your head, you guys are pleasant to one another, at least on the surface, saying hi. But on the inside, you feel some type of way about this dude, or you feel some type of way about this lady. You don't really have a reason to, you just do. You don't like how she pops her gum. Well, yeah, that actually is a reason. You popping your gum while I'm trying to do my work. That is not going to happen. And slurping your coffee. Oh my God. Slurping, like, bruh, blow it and then drink it smoothly. Do not slurp, please, slurp, please. But all these little subtle things that happen. And the next thing you know, there's momentum building in this person, and you are actually having some sort of confrontation, directly or indirectly. And you think, yeah, I knew it. I knew she wasn't cool. But the real question is, did she only behave that way because of your negative projection towards her? The more that I grow and evolve in my personal understanding, I'm more inclined to think the latter. It says, it's the universe inside of us as well as the one that surrounds us, the quantum bridge between all that's possible in our minds and what becomes real in the world. The positive feelings and prayers within us can be so effective in the world around us. The divine matrix demonstrates that human emotions, which are beliefs, expectations, and feelings, are the language that the divine matrix recognizes. It's all frequency based. We're all vibrating. We're vibrating high or we're vibrating low. We're vibrating love or we're vibrating hate, or somewhere in between. We are expecting positive, loving, mutually beneficial things from the world, or we think it's me against the world. We don't trust anybody. Never trust anybody. Well, imagine what the frequency of that does when it goes out into the ethers. Oh, never trust anybody. Okay, well, here's 20 more people you can't trust. You want some more? It's clear that emotion, feeling, and belief are the language of the divine matrix. And there's a quality of emotion that allows us to experience the field of energy connecting the universe in ways that are powerful, healing, and natural. And I'm going into this, right, the microcosm and the macrocosm, because talking about being visionaries, we have to have time and attention and focus every single day. The light beings, the healers, the spiritually aware, the builders, the farmers. This is not just toiling the sand, toiling the soil. The real soil, the real toiling of the soil is conditioned to the mind to attract the soil and bring it to you. That's the first sort of definitive statement of consciousness. I want to own land. I have so much love and respect for nature. I want to have access to it all the time so that I can cultivate it and show my love and gratitude and appreciation for the abundance of this planet, and take a seed and turn it into 1,000 seeds and feed my family and feed the collective consciousness and be sovereign in my own personal state of affairs. That is a very strong, powerful intention in terms of land. Deepak Chopra, in the 7 Spiritual Laws of Success, he's got a section on intention, and he describes attention versus intention. This conscious change is brought about by the 2 qualities inherent in consciousness. Well, actually, this is a paragraph. There was more building up to this, just in case it's not cohesive. But this conscious change is brought about by the 2 qualities inherent in consciousness: attention and intention. Attention energizes and intention transforms. A great example of that would be, this is not Deepak, this is me. Attention being, attention to police brutality, right? And marching and protesting and sounding the alarm, when people are victims of police brutality and police murders. Intention and having a collective consciousness of intention that all police brutality and physical abuse and suffering at the hands of police needs to stop immediately, right? And it's like, but you can't fight against something if you want to destroy it. You have to ignore it because the frequency is always going to be focused on whatever you're paying attention to. Police brutality, oh, okay, what's the frequency? Is it love or is it hate? It's hate. Okay, here's more. So how can you apply, or what can you apply to the conversation, the subject of police brutality based on love? That's not just for me to figure out. That's the question, especially for the people who are fighting against police brutality, because I am not. Am I against it? For sure. That, that goes without saying. But I understand how counterproductive fighting against police brutality is, right? Whatever you put your attention on will grow. I'm back on the 7 spiritual laws. Whatever you put your attention on will grow stronger in your life. Whatever you take your attention away from will wither, disintegrate, and disappear. Intention, on the other hand, triggers transformation of energy and information. Intention organizes its own fulfillment. I have an intention when I sit down and do these videos. If I read quotes from 3 or 4 different books or an article, or take notes before I sit down and talk to you guys, it's because I have an intention to trigger something or inspire something in you while you're listening to me. So I share with you the content from the Divine Matrix, the content from the Super Beings, the content from the Kabbalion, all these different books that I'm constantly referencing, right? Because I remember the feeling and the frequency when the truth triggered me. When the thought inspired and invigorated me, it created a frequency, the right frequency, right? And so every time I share that with you guys, it magnifies that frequency. Okay, so this is transmutation. I'm an alchemist, baby. Yeah, I am for sure. But that's what we're talking about, right? So whatever you take your attention away from, wait, let me go back to this. Whatever you put your attention on will grow stronger in your life. Whatever you take your attention away from will wither, disintegrate, and disappear. Eventually, we're going to have to turn our backs to a lot of this insanity and chaos happening in our world. My focus and attention on my attention and intention right now is to create a sovereign, peace-filled, love-filled, high vibrational space for myself and for people that are in alignment with building a new earth, a new kingdom of God, whatever you want to call it. The people with the most determined ideas are the most successful. And one of the, I've been talking about this reality show, right, Master Chef, and I was thinking about this the other day. I have the HGTV home improvement shows. I've always loved those, the decorating shows. That's one of my talents and skills and passions. Is I love interior and architectural design. So and do it yourself, different shows like that really kind of showcase people's talents and creativities. And even with the Food Network, right, creating cakes, showcasing cooking, highlighting their talents, right? And I was thinking about this the other day. I like those shows because you get to see people doing what they love without limitation. So on MasterChef, these regular home cooks that are cooking on, regular stoves and buying, maybe produce from Walmart, maybe, lower grade meats and vegetables and whatnot. These people have access to this very high quality kitchen, state of the art technology. Everything is top of the line. All of the food they give them to cook with, all of the spices, all of the herbs, everything is high quality, top of the line. They're not at home dealing with children. They're not at home dealing with regular, work, business things, having to handle obligations. They completely zone out and go into a 100% focus of cooking and mastering perfecting their talents and their skill sets. Would they, those same cooks have been so successful if they, came in for 2 hours a day and did whatever needs to be done and then had to go back to work and had to deal with the craziness of the world and barely sleeping and frustrated and all the stuff that comes with life. Not all of it's bad, obviously, but still it takes you in a thousand different directions. Every day we're all in 1,000 different directions. So we never have time to be 100, 1,000% focused unless it's those rare people who are artists or who are writers or who go into a zone through their crafts, their artwork, maybe building, rebuilding cars, maybe engineers, creating things, something from nothing again, but expressing creating something from nothing is why we're here. And we're not doing that. And that's why the depression rates are so high and the suicide rates are so high and the anxiety is so high. Catherine Ponder in her book, I forget the name of it. I just typed the reference, pardon me, but it's a Catherine Ponder book. If you want the actual name of the book, just reach out to me. But she says many people work hard at prosperity in external ways, but they miss the mark because they are afraid to get definite in their thoughts and desires. They want to live better to have more money, but they never get definite in their desires about how they want to live better or how much money they need. In fact, many people hesitate to get definite, fearing that they are telling God what to do. But as Dr. Emil Cady once wrote, desire is God tapping at the door of your mind, trying to give you greater good. If you suppress these deep desires, they have no constructive outlet and often turn into destructive channels expressed as neurotic tendencies, phobias, tension, or perhaps as suppression that finds outlet through alcoholism, mental illness, dope addiction, sexual imbalance, and other negative actions. So, we have the aspect of this in terms of the world that we've built now and the things that are happening in the ground on our lives, right? Never trying to minimize the seriousness or, what's actually happening in your life. But what I do know is regardless of where you are in the world, regardless of how much money you have, regardless of your family support system, regardless of if anybody ever loved you or not, or if your man left you poor, broken, and lonely, it does not matter if you can learn, or it always matters, right? But in terms of consciously creating reality and creating a world that is reflective of what you actually desire, you have to focus within and you have to create that vision strongly in your mind. Everybody is meant to, going back to what I was saying about the master chef, right? And these different ways of watching people see what they love without limitation. What the world needs right now is for you to be able to do what you love. Actually, I said this wrong. For you to be able to do what you love and at the same time provide a service or a product or an experience or a feeling or a concept, whatever it is, you will be wildly successful during this time. Doing what you love, vibrating at a high capacity of inspiration and encouragement and enthusiasm, which is where the upper echelons of consciousness are. Finding a way to take your niche and provide it to the world, you will be wildly successful moving forward, because that's what the new earth is about. That's what fifth dimensional consciousness is about. Be and it is. Oh, I had a thought. I think this is what I want. Okay, the energy and the frequency lined up. Okay, boom, there it is. Somebody's knocking on your door. And it'll take a day, or it'll take a month, or it'll take a year, depending on the strength of your vibrational countenance. Everybody is meant to have their moment in the sun. Everybody's meant to have their moment to shine. When I see the chefs coming, I keep mentioning the chefs. I'm not trying to encourage you guys to watch this show, but I always like to use examples, right? That can take us all to a place in our mind that we all can immediately like, yeah, that makes sense. Even in your mind's eye, you can probably visualize some of this as I'm talking about it. If you've watched the show, then you probably your mind is taking you back to that specific image or vision of what took place, right? But these people get a moment to have their moment in the sun, regular, everyday, average people getting applauded and appreciated and valued for their talents and their skill sets. We're all supposed to have that. Everybody's supposed to have their moment to shine. Everybody's supposed to have a moment to showcase their greatness and express their skills and talents at the highest level. We're not cultivating them, however, the greatness in our minds, which is where it all begins. We can't even see ourselves walking in the light or exuding greatness. So how can we manifest it in third dimensional reality? And in alignment with in addition to everything that I said, everybody is supposed to have access to full, strong support from the culture, from the community, from the family, from family. That's how it's supposed to be. Nobody is supposed to be out here thugging it out and trying to figure it out alone. The children of the world need guidance and leadership. We have a new earth to create. We have new systems of government, new ways of processing and creating food, growing food. I was thinking earlier today about like being able to clean water. Accessing water on your own without a water company is one thing. Having access to water that actually needs to be cleaned is another way. And I know there's a bunch of different, techniques, ancient techniques and, do-it-yourself type of techniques out there. But this is, all of the different ways that it's going to take to govern ourselves. And when I say we need guidance and leadership, that's not going to come from our young people. I know we believe the children are the future, teach them well and let them lead the way. Yes, they are absolutely are the future, but this is spiritual warfare. Most of the adults on this planet are nowhere near prepared to handle what's going on the planet right now and what's coming. Only what's coming for the ones that aren't prepared. So if the parents haven't armed the children with the skill set, then what do we look like telling the world and pushing and projecting our children out in front of us to lead the way? No, absolutely not. Not in spiritual warfare. We absolutely need to take the reins. We absolutely need to be standing out front. The neutrality is a problem for me. Babies with 6 months old and up now are being inoculated and nobody seems to care. We're supposed to be creating a reality 7 generations ahead of us. And I don't think we're even thinking beyond the generation that's in front of us now. Emphasis on visionaries, emphasis on what you desire, emphasis on how you want your community and your life to look like. Fine-tuning your focus, spending more of the day thinking about the things that you really want, the things that you actually desire, opposed to the things you don't like, the things that irritate you, the continuous patterns, frustrations, etc. Morning and night, creating regimens to sharpen your imagination and your focus. And then adding a breathing regimen and different music and different sounds and frequencies and different positive affirmations to reprogram your subconscious mind. Forming and conceptualizing a predetermined idea for what you want your life to look and feel like. And you got to have willpower. So, of course, I always suggest fasting, not just from food, but from social media, from negative energy, from the news, from the government, from anything that takes you outside of yourself. And even sometimes you got to turn everything off so you can hear the voice within. So the predetermined idea plus willpower plus inspired action, the Muslims say work cheerfully. How many of us actually work cheerfully? Because that's creating a frequency, it's creating a momentum. And we can work cheerfully when we have something in our mind's eye to look forward to, because we know that we are consciously creating reality and we have a vision that we're holding tight to. A predetermined idea, we know that desire is God's way of communicating through us. So if the desire is to own and cultivate land, then that is God expressing itself through you. communicating through you, being intentional with your life. When I do yoga, and you're supposed to set an intention before every practice, my intention is always the same: peace of mind and strength. Now, you could say, oh, I don't know if those two things go together. Well, that's two aspects of myself: the spiritual aspect, peace of mind, and then the physical aspect, strength. That's why you'll never hear me say I'm not a strong woman. Like, no, every time I do yoga, I and my goal is strength, physical strength. But not just physical strength, mental strength. Because a lot of times getting on the mat is the hardest part, or holding a pose when your body wants to break down, but you can will yourself, right? Our visualizing and changing our expectations and emphasizing our focus and projection of a beautiful life and a beautiful experience by way of people, by way of experiences, fine-tuning our willpower. I'm going to leave you guys with this because this is a thought that I had. I wrote the thought down, but it's not a cohesive thought. But after I read it, now it's a cohesive thought. And I'm going to leave you guys with this. Your visualization, your expectation, your focus, your projection, your willpower, your state of affairs all must be more powerful than the agenda that these people, the powers that used to be, have for our planet and for the people of our planet, the civilizations of our planet. Your visualization, your expectation, your focus, your projection, your willpower, your internal affairs must be more powerful than the agenda that has been running for 100+ years. How many movies did we talk about? This has been programming the subconscious mind of billions of people for a very long time, but not you and not us, right? So it might be working on everybody else, but I see the play. And it's hard for me to talk about, these spiritual concepts without dealing with the reality on the ground, because, I feel disingenuous when I do that. So I try to use real time, real life examples, right? And what I know of through my research and perspective and observations to I want to color a full picture. And then with the full picture, you can say, okay, when I sit down to meditate, when I rest my mind, when I close my eyes to color in my imagination, I'm working with a blank slate. So my blank slate, my abstract painting for myself is not going to include any of that, although I am aware of it. ZaZaAli.com. Well, you guys know my website. Thank you guys for tuning in. I think I stayed right around my 1 minute, 1 hour mark, maybe went over by a couple of minutes, but let me know your feedback, how this video resonated with you, if it inspired any particular thoughts, or if you have any questions. All right, I'll see you guys soon. Peace and love.